All right, so thanks again for doing this. My first question to you is tell the audience a little bit about yourself and how you started uh in the community.
Sure. So my husband, Jeremy Hannaford, is the coach and president of Seattle Slam Wheelchair Rugby Club. And at the time, he was just a player. Um, we have known each other since elementary school, but took like a solid 10 years in adulthood where we didn't speak. Um, And when I moved back home from Florida and moved back to Washington State, we um, rekindled friendship. And that was back in 2009. And I jumped right into the rugby scene at that time. Really, at that point, it was just coming to practices and watching games. And then pretty quickly, or should I say, pretty quickly, I started jumping into other roles, support staff type of roles at practices, just helping players tape up or get transferred into their chairs. And that was that. We got married in 2013. And since then, he's now, like I said, president and the coach of the team, and has also been on Team USA Low Point Wheelchair Rugby as well. So our involvement in wheelchair rugby and accessibility sports has widened since back in 2009. And I just help him with whatever he needs. I am his caregiver here at home. So there's that piece of it. And I've been his caregiver since 2013. And I do everything from, helping with t-shirt sales to, like I said, helping at tournaments and practices with all of the players that are there. And we have one really large local tournament in Seattle every single year, and I'm in charge of the food. So if anybody ever comes to our local tournaments, I'm the one that's at the food service table, and I make the food for all of the players and support staff for the weekend. And you will generally see me there at the table yelling and screaming, watching games while I'm helping serve. So I hope that answers your question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like tell me a little bit about the work that you do, because I remember I think I saw that you had a website in which you have a private practice. Um,
Yes. Well, if I could give you a little bit of my backstory, when Jeremy and I got together, I was very healthy and well. I was very blessed to just be living life. I am still a mom of three, but all of my kids were under the age of 12 at that time. Um, and in 2012, my father passed away very tragically on his way to work. And the reason why I talk about that is the body's trauma response and the connection between trauma and chronic illness manifestation is something I'm very, very passionate about. I did not connect the dots for many years, but in 2013, I started having just an array of medical conditions and symptoms that no one could figure out what was going on with me. And it took about 4 years for Western medicine doctors to start diagnosing me with different autoimmune conditions: lupus, mixed connective tissue disorder, rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia, Raynaud's, Sjogren's. Those are just a few. And from 2013 to about 2018, I just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And I was still trying to be a wife, trying to be a mom, trying to be a caregiver. I've owned my own pet grooming business since 2008. So I was doing that as well. And I was really struggling. My body was failing me. And I ended up being very, very, very sick. At my sickest, I was 97 pounds and on 18 different pharmaceuticals for pain, for autoimmunity, inflammation, different things. And I just became a person that does not look like this. I was unrecognizable. And in 2019, 2018, part of my care, should I say, Western medicine management, was to get a radical hysterectomy. And I had a near death experience 3 weeks after that surgery and ended up in emergency surgery from bleeding out. And that was a true wake up call to start looking at different ways to help support my body. So I started seeing functional medicine doctors and acupuncturists, and I was still doing everything my Western medicine doctors were telling me, but I was trying to look at different ways. And I was getting a little bit better, but I wasn't able to get off of my medications, and I still was struggling pretty poorly. And the piece here that I want to really amplify in terms of trauma response and what my personal catalyst for changing the trajectory of my health, changing the direction of what I do for a living now, was Jeremy and I were in a rollover car accident on New Year's Eve of 2021. And that moment was the, I guess, aha light bulb moment for me that a lot of people talk about what changed their life. And in that accident, I literally was holding Jeremy up from the roof of a car, waiting for EMS and the fire department to come. And I was like, what am I doing with my life? Why am I allowing all of these medical professionals to dictate how I'm living my life, what I'm putting in my body? And it's obviously not helping me or even like trying to get me to baseline. And that very next day, I decided I was going to reach out to my medical team and ask them to choose just 3 medications that they thought I couldn't live without. And I wanted their help to get off of the other 15. And that was the beginning of my story of really, truly living life wholeheartedly with purpose and listening to really the innate ability for your body to communicate with you. And through now my training and schooling since that time, I've really poured myself into the body's trauma response and have become a trapped emotion release practitioner, a somatic breath work practitioner. I'm also a Reiki healer, a medical intuitive that I'm now into my first full year of shamanism training and just herbal medicine and plant therapy and different ways that our body was designed to heal naturally way back before all of these medications were around. And so I just have been pouring my heart and soul into schooling and training so I can help other people heal as I did. And May 15th of this year will be 3 years exactly that I've been in autoimmune remission, completely off all of my medications. I'm non-symptomatic and really living the healthiest version of myself, both mentally, physically, and spiritually. And I talk to anyone and everyone that's willing to listen to what they could do, the tools that they can implement in their lives to even just have a little bit more of a better health, whether that's less pain, less mental anguish, anxiety, whatever it is. And so I do my work virtually, but I also have a practice here in Washington State where I do hands-on treatment. I create custom protocols for supplementation and herbal medicine just to help people start living their best life and living it in really true to their body and what their specific body needs.
Mm-hmm. So on that point, my next question is what can your practice, supplementation and like herbal medicine, the stuff that you do, what benefits does that have? Because I remember talking about this in a class once where we had a guest speaker talk about some of the benefits of you know, recreational products, kind of n- that kind of stuff. So what can you say in terms of the research that has been done about this?
Absolutely. So if we just talk just solely on the gut microbiome, I won't dive into all of the things that I can help you with, but if we talk just about research on the gut microbiome, our gut microbiome controls so much of our bodily functions. 80% of our mood receptors, so like serotonin and dopamine and cortisol, these neurotransmitters that help your brain communicate to the gut through your nervous system and your vagus nerve. If your gut microbiome is imbalanced, whether you are dealing with post antibiotic issues and your bacterial load in your gut is imbalanced, or you have leaky gut, permeable lining from medications or poor diet, high stress, um, that can also cause anxiety and depression. 70 to 75% of your immune system cells are also located in your gut microbiome. So, a lot of people that come to me with autoimmune concerns, we start very strongly on the gut microbiome because you could take all of the supplements in the world and all of the medications in the world for an autoimmune condition. But if you are not addressing the gut microbiome with enzymes and strains of bacteria that are specific for immune system function, um, even different herbs and some aloe and glutamine, marshmallow root. There's different herbs that we can use to heal the gut lining. That really is the fundamental base of healing any type of chronic illness, especially an inflammatory based chronic illness. You also, if you look at women's health, 85% of your hormones are sourced from your gut microbiome because your estrobiome, which is your estrogen specific network of hormones, is linked and they share bacteria with the gut microbiome. So if I have a woman that is going through perimenopause or menopause, we start addressing the gut microbiome in addition to using my hormone balancing system, which has things like wild yam and chasteberry and marshmallow root, red clover, different herbs that help balance estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. But there's so much research on healing your gut heals your life, your mental health, your physical health, and different inflammatory conditions are very much linked to gut health. And that could also include, parasitic overload. There's lots of talk on parasites in the body these days, but this is something that people have been dealing with forever. And when you look at Ayurvedic medicine, I'm sorry, as well as from a shaman standpoint or plant medicine standpoint, we've been using all of these herbs that are now more mainstream for parasitic detox for years and years and years. There just wasn't a label placed on them like there is now. So, starting with the gut is a huge, huge step. Changing our diet, there are so many toxins in our food these days, whether they're labeled organic or free range or not. So I really help clients look at where they're sourcing their food and which items may be contributing to their symptoms. And that doesn't mean that we need to change our diet for the rest of our life, but it is crucial in the first 3 months of gut healing to really change what we're putting in our body so we can lessen the inflammatory load that's happening because inflammation fuels all disease. So if we're focusing on inflammation reduction, gut healing, and then picking just a couple of supplements or herbal routes, we can really turn someone's health around.
Hmm. I want to get to that point. Like what has been the sort of client response in, in terms of like, you know, getting, um have helping them having those products help them reduce inflammation or whatever disease they may have. What has been sort of the response been like from clients in that regard?
Sure. Um, I see a big pivotal change about the 2.5 month mark to about the 4 month mark in terms of their lab work changing for the better. And my thought process on this is the gut microbiome, from a research standpoint, takes up to 90 days for a complete gut reset, especially if you have a big bacterial imbalance, whether that's from antibiotics, leaky gut, poor diet, whatever it is. It takes up to 90 days for your gut microbiome to reset, and then the rest of your body systems systemically start falling into place. So it makes complete sense to me that my clients start saying, Tiffanie, my CRP or SED rate, which are showing inflammation in the body, those have started to balance and get to baseline. Or my ANA or dsDNA, which are autoimmune markers, those have started lessening or decreasing, or you don't even see that I have a positive ANA anymore. So around that 3 month mark is when we stop focusing so much on the gut microbiome and we start a more targeted approach. So if someone is dealing with cardiovascular concerns, we may start bringing in herbs and supplements that are more focused on blood flow efficiency and cardiovascular health and less on the gut microbiome, because our labs are already showing that our body is receptive to the treatment and the protocols that I'm setting forth. And we can start focusing more on what they've been diagnosed with or what their symptoms are, because the body, so to speak, is now feeling safe enough to heal. And those first 3 months, when I talk about safety and trauma response, someone has been chronically ill for, even if it's just a year, which can seem like forever for someone in chronic pain, the body, specifically the nervous system, starts putting up this protective measure around themselves to protect them. So when we start making these changes, sometimes the body will push back, but once it feels that it's safe enough to heal and it feels less inflammation and less pain, and maybe the anxiety and the depression is lessened, that's when I start really seeing the body opening up. So in the first 3 months, we work a lot with somatic healing, which is like guided breath work, meditation, tapping, doing Reiki or trapped emotion work with me. So we're changing the mind so it's more receptive to healing, so the mind can continue to communicate through the gut brain axis and through the nervous system and the essentially enteric and autonomic nervous system, which I also feel is very important to those in my husband's community, quadriplegics and paraplegics, whose nervous system is very much impacted by spinal cord injury or whatever their injury has been, or if it's even something that they've been born with that is impacting their nervous system to be able to communicate effectively. So this is not just something that is autoimmune related or gut imbalance related. This can impact everyone. And the body's trauma response and somatic healing, I wish was talked about so much more, because like I said, you could take so many supplements and so many herbs, but if you're not addressing the inner work and the trauma that your body is holding on to, and for SCI friends, that's huge. You've gone through significant trauma and your body keeps the score. Your body remembers every traumatic event, whether it's something you've shoved down or have forgotten about. The body remembers, and it's really important to address them, uncover them, allow you to release that trauma and move forward. So the work that we do together with herbs and supplements are much more effective.
Mm-hmm. Lastly, to kind of wrap this up, like what can people take away from this? How can, we sort of, how can we as individuals learn ways to really heal ourselves and really find ways to sort of kind of the things that you said with like um with like with like looking at your gut microbiome and stuff like that. How can we as adults sort of learn that, or what steps should we take to address that on an individual level because a lot of people might not know what to do in that yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think the top three things, if we're looking at gut health, it's January. We see a lot of people talking about New Year's resolutions. I'm not a huge fan of New Year's resolutions. I'm a huge fan of lifestyle changes in general. And if you could change three things this month that are sustainable, it would be really bringing in a, a more whole food diet and looking at where you're sourcing your food. So removing glutens and replacing that with like local sourdough if you don't make your own sourdough. Sourdough is great for enzyme production in the gut. It helps it in terms of bacterial imbalances, and it doesn't have such a high gluten content. So that could be an easy switch if you're not willing to completely take breads away altogether. I would highly recommend looking at sugar, removing refined sugars and replacing those with raw local honey from your community or pure maple syrup, not pancake syrup, but pure maple syrup. Some people will even use agave syrup instead if you really feel like you need a sweetener. The reason why I say remove refined sugars, it's on the top three inflammatory causing foods, and it's in everything. So read labels. Um, Alongside of that is the fake sugars that, are in all of the diet drinks. Those are horrible for you and they're chemically created and they do so much damage. So if you can make that switch to pure maple syrup, raw honey, or agave syrup, that would be huge. Um, Dairy is also a big culprit for a lot of people. So if you're not ready to dive into enzyme therapy or pro and prebiotics, seed fibers, and maybe glutamine or aloe, marshmallow root, different powders to help your gut, maybe switching to a plant-based milk like almond milk or coconut milk or hemp milk. I'm not a huge fan of soy milk, especially for perimenopausal and menopausal women, but there are some great companies that have really good plant-based milks that don't have added sugars and processed items in them. And then if we were to suggest a supplemental route, really resetting the gut, a good digestive enzyme that is more formulated with herbs, and then setting yourself up with someone like me or another practitioner that can help you locate strains of bacteria. Probiotics and prebiotics are not created equal, and they need both of each other to grow and repopulate in the gut, number one. And number two, different strains serve different purposes. I have many people come to me saying, well, I've been taking a probiotic for years. Well, some probiotics are just for digestive health, some are for mental health, some balance hormones, and some actually change your immune system cells. So for someone with autoimmunity, that would be really important. So, and making sure that you're addressing leaky gut. Otherwise, all of those supplements are just going to be getting flushed down the toilet. So those would be my first couple of things. Look at your diet, look where you're getting your food. If you can align yourself with a good butcher locally or a good co-op, farmer's market, that is the best place to get your food and reduce the toxic load of what you're putting inside your body.
Mm-hmm. All right.